And so it happened that Angus McAllister's eyes fell on a sight which first froze his blood and then caused it to boil. Moving here and there through his gardens was a small girl, picking his flowers. And, this made his blood boil, it was the same girl who 2 days ago had thrown stones at him and hit him on the leg. The quietness of the summer evening was broken by a noise that sounded like boilers exploding, and Angus came towards her at 45 miles an hour. Gladys did not wait. She was a London child, trained from a young age to be brave in times of danger, but this attack was so sudden that for a moment it broke her nerve. With a frightened cry, she ran to where Lord Emsworth stood and hid behind him. Lord Emsworth was not feeling very good himself. We have pictured him a few moments ago deciding to put McAllister in his proper place, but truth forces us to admit that this decision was taken because he believed the head gardener to be 1/4 mile away. Lord Emsworth's knees shook, and the soul within him trembled. And then something happened, and the whole situation changed. It was in itself a small thing, but it served to encourage Lord Emsworth. What happened was that Gladys, needing further protection, slid a small, hot hand into his. She trusted him. "He's coming," whispered a small voice inside Lord Emsworth. "What about it?" replied Lord Emsworth bravely. "Put him in his place," breathed his lordship's great-grandfathers. "I will," replied Lord Emsworth. He stood up straight. He felt masterful. If the man decided to leave his job, let him. "Well, McAllister," said Lord Emsworth coldly. He took off his top hat and brushed it against his coat. "What is the matter, McAllister?" He put his top hat on again. "You appear to be upset, McAllister." He moved his head. The hat fell off. He let it lie. Free from its hateful weight, he felt more masterful than ever. "This young lady," said Lord Emsworth, "has my full permission to pick all the flowers she wants, McAllister. If you do not agree with me in this matter, McAllister, say so, and we will discuss what you are going to do about it, McAllister. These gardens, McAllister, belong to me, and if you do not realize the fact, you will, no doubt, be able to find another employer with more, sympathy for your views. I value your services highly, McAllister, but I will not be ordered about in my own garden, McAllister." A long moment followed, in which nature stood still, breathless. All the flowers stood still. From far off, in the direction of the park, there sounded the happy cries of children, who were probably breaking things, but even these seemed quieter than before. Angus McAllister stood red and angry in the face. He was confused. Angus had never thought that his employer would suggest that he might look for another position, and now that he had suggested it, Angus McAllister disliked the idea very much. He loved Blandings Castle. He would be miserable anywhere else. He made his decision. said Angus McAllister. "Oh, and by the way, McAllister," said Lord Emsworth, "that matter about the path through the trees, I've been thinking it over, and I won't have it. Certainly not. Spoil my beautiful gardens with an ugly path? Ruin the most beautiful spot in one of the finest and oldest gardens in England? Certainly not. No. Try to remember, McAllister, as you work in the gardens of Blandings Castle, that you are not back in Scotland laying out playing fields. That is all, McAllister. That is all." Said Angus McAllister. He turned, he walked away, he disappeared. Nature began to breathe again. The wind began to blow, and all over the gardens the birds which had stopped singing began again. Lord Emsworth took out his handkerchief and ran it over his face. He was shaken, but a new sense of being a man among men filled him with pleasure. He almost wished that his sister Constance would come along and say something while he felt like this. He had his wish. "Clarence?" Yes, there she was, hurrying toward Constance, singing began again. Lord Emsworth took out his handkerchief and ran it over his face. He was shaken, but a new sense of being a man among men filled him with pleasure. He almost wished that his sister— "Matter? Do you know what the time is? Do you know that everybody is waiting down there for you to make your speech?" Lord Emsworth looked her in the eye severely. "I do not," he said, "and I don't care. I'm not going to make any speech. If you want a speech, let someone else make it, or make it yourself. Speech! I never heard such nonsense in my life." He turned to Gladys. "Now, my dear," he said, "if you will just give me time to get out of these terrible clothes and this devilish collar and put on something human, we'll go down to the village and have a talk with Ern." End of CD 2.